trees in the backwoods night. Red lights cutting through the pine in flight. Bigfoot stomping with his youngling beard. Whispers of tales that ain't too clear. UFOs buzzing solo through the haze. Howling banshees set the forest ablaze. Jersey devil howls, drink rays to the sky. Drunken cryptids party until the morning's night. Yeah. It's showtime, running wild in the moonlight. Stars burn down, watch the freaks all take flight.
To good times.
Raise your glasses to the mysteries divine. It's showtime.
Oh, it's recording. I love this raw and unfiltered. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton. I do want to give a quick shout out to everybody out there on the team. I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. Keep checking the Facebook page. Chris right now has got some links set up for his GoFundMe, trying to work on bringing colon cancer awareness to the world, and he's working on a program to go up to Washington. So he's got the GoFundMe. I've been sharing it on the Facebook page. Also, blademedia.com. Thank you so much, Dylan, for everything you're doing. Congratulations on getting your own little show started. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, check out Blade Media, BLAYED, media.com. I always feel like saying .com at the end of that for some reason, the old commercial. And of course, we've got the Cryptid Fest June 6th of 2026. So make sure y'all come out. It's going to be at 600 North Broadway Street at Old Bart's Diamond Bear Brewery there in North Little Rock. We've got VIP section already. The Eventbrite's credited, so check that out. So for the VIPs, you are going to get a t-shirt, and you'll also get a chance to do a meet and greet and have a dinner provided for you the night before. Meet the VIP speakers, hang out with them, have a good time on the Friday night. And then you'll have access to go inside of Bart's, because that's where the VIP speakers will be speaking at. The event is free for everybody else, and we got a bunch of great guest speakers coming as well, so that are free to the public, and of course the vendors. But let's get into today's episode. And unfortunately, we've tried this four times we've tried to get this interview going. So you guys, James Fyerman, great guy. We've done one full recording already, and unfortunately we could not capture the audio. So we're back again. We're going to get it done. And he is still recovering from knee surgery. So James, appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy guy, and yeah, let's jump into it. So James, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Matt. And I am glad to be here again, even though it may be the first time that he's ever seen me. I feel like I'm a veteran of this show. But yeah, I'm
So
James
tell me, so you're an author.
Yeah, I'm an author. That's what I do. Not to put money on the table. What puts money on the table is I'm a career firefighter paramedic, and I've been a firefighter paramedic for almost 25 years now. And like you said, a couple decades of firefighting, it can wear on you. And my knee finally gave out, so I got a new one, and I'm learning to walk on that. But I'm here in Central Ohio and doing my firefighting. And throughout my life, I have been a lifelong lover of reading and writing. So even as a kid, I would read a book and it would excite my imagination. And then I was, as a kid, I'd scribble in my notebooks and write my own stories. And I have two books now out on Amazon, and my first came out a couple of years ago is Breaker Ford's Adventures in Space, and that's a comedy science fiction. It's a retro B movie, cheesy style comedy. Breaker Ford's a space trucker, and he's got to rescue the beautiful Princess Babe from the evil alien dictator Lord Preposterous. Now that's been out for a few years, and my latest just came out this past March, and that's Bigfoot in the Saddle, and that's a Western. And of course, it's about Bigfoot. And both of these books are illustrated by me. I write them and illustrate them. Uh, and Bigfoot is another one of my longtime loves, is being a Bigfoot fan. So I kind of mash everything together in my stories of all the things I love: Bigfoot and Westerns, and I've got Breaker Ford in outer space, and all the things that go on there. And yeah, that's kind of me and who I am.
I love it. And I love the artwork. I mean, it's a really awesome retro cover for both books, actually. If you're looking at here, so this is the cover for Bigfoot in the Saddle. And I love the concept of Bigfoot in the Old West. I think that is so fun. Which, I mean, more likely could have happened. And then, of course, over here, you've got the artwork. Everybody's getting teased real quick. And there's, Breaker Fours, the original Breaker Fours, Adventure in Space. I love it. So what inspired you to do Bigfoot, though? That's, and we'll cover Breaker Ford, but with Bigfoot coming, the new book, let's talk about, what inspired you to write the novel and, kind of put it in the Old West setting.
Yeah, well, like you said, my two things that I've always loved: Bigfoot and the Old West. I grew up watching the Westerns, the old movies on TV, John Wayne and the Magnificent Seven, and even older Hopalong Cassidy and those kind of guys. It just makes sense to me that if Bigfoot or Big Feet, this is a race of creatures. They've been around for decades, eons. So at some point in the Old West, in the gunfighter days, there were Bigfoot back then. What would happen if Bigfoot ran across some gunfighters in the Old West? And in my story, Bigfoot is he's not an unintelligent creature. He's in tune with nature, and he learns and can adapt very quickly. So once he comes across the gunfighters and he gets his hand on a 6-shooter, he learns very quickly. So the idea of that kind of a mashup, to me, it's really not like taking two different genres. You see movies or stories where it's cowboys and aliens and things like that. Well, Bigfoot and cowboys, Bigfoot's out in the wild territory, and that's where pioneers and gunfighters were headed to.
I love that. You mentioned being into it, nature, and one of the parts of the book that got to me was when he's with the kid and they go into the cave and the kid's been hurt. I don't want to give too much away in the book, but Bigfoot starts, he creates, a herb medicine to apply to the kid to kind of heal him. And I love that part. And then he also, he's trying to communicate, and he wrote that very well. Where the kid catches on what, Bigfoot's trying to say. Okay, he's got a wife, and he picks up the rock and cradles the rock like a baby, and symbolizing that, there's a baby here as well. But, and again, right after that is when, Bigfoot, and of course, the title of this episode is Shoom Shoom. So, which is what, I'll let you take it from there, what Bigfoot does with Shoom Shoom.
Yeah, well, I'll back up a bit. The kid you're referencing the Raspberry Kid, who is a gunfighter who befriends Bigfoot. The basic outline of the story is this is 1889 Northern California, and the small town of Eagletooth has a greedy banker. Every great Western story has to have the greedy banker, and he wants to be a big shot and turn Eagletooth into a railroad hub. So he's trying to get a railroad run through Eagletooth. Well, as they start laying track, they're going into untouched virgin territory in the wilderness, and that track starts getting tore up by Bigfoot. And the banker, George Milch, he's only about progress and he's only about money. And he says, hey, I've got some wild creature out here. It's nothing more than like a wild coyote. Now he's formidable, but we've got to get rid of him. So my plan is I'll bring in 25 of the Old West's deadliest gunfighters and outlaws, and I'll pay them to hunt down Bigfoot and kill him, and we'll get on with our railroad project of progress. Now, one of those gunfighters is the Raspberry Kid, who he is a deadly gunfighter, but he has a conscience. And when he's out there, in trying to hunt down Bigfoot, he realizes once he makes contact that Bigfoot is an intelligent creature. And he actually is trying to protect his home from the encroachment of civilization. And he's trying to protect his family. So in the chapter you're talking about, when the kid meets with Bigfoot, and the kid has been injured by Bigfoot, and Bigfoot he doesn't want to hurt the kid. So Bigfoot, being in tune with nature, he has herbal remedy. He has herbal remedies, and he works to heal the kid. And Bigfoot himself had been hurt by the gunfighters. He applies the remedy to himself. And then he wants to see this tool or this object that had hurt him, which is a gun similar to the Raspberry Kids. And when Bigfoot gets a hold of it, he has been really affected by the sound that comes from that gun. And Bigfoot, he imitates the sound with the shoom, shoom. So he starts shooting the gun, and he's saying shoom, shoom. And the kid, really, they join forces. The kid says, look, we have to get together and protect you from these outlaws that they're trying to wipe you and your family out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Without giving away too much of the book too. And, I did pull up while you were talking there. I just kind of want to give everybody, a chance to see some of the illustrations that now these are your illustrations, correct?
They are, and I'm old school. So the interior illustrations, that's real pen and ink. There's no computer graphic or anything used. And I wanted to do interior illustrations that way because I'm a fan of the old pulp novels from the 1930s. Doc Savage, The Shadow, there's old Western pulp novels, and they always had the pen and ink illustrations inside. So I have those, but I also, the covers are my own. And that is old school. That is paint on canvas. So when you're looking at that, the color cover of the Bigfoot book or Breaker Ford, that's paint on canvas. Yeah.
That's awesome. So not only can you write, but you can obviously draw too. I mean, just looking at these as I'm flicking through this Breaker, there's one. All right. See, now this is a classic Bigfoot scene right here. Because Bigfoot's known to be, throwing rocks. So, and I love that. And the cool thing about your book too, though, is that you have all these illustrations spread out through your novel as you're going through it. And so how much fun? I mean, seriously, what a fun, great concept and a fun book. I mean,
I had fun.
Takes me back nostalgia.
I had a lot of fun writing it, Matt. So I have several other projects on the docket, and Bigfoot was kind of down the list because I was further along with some other projects, and I was like, man, I really want to start this. So I started a chapter, and I was like, this is just too much fun, and I went all the way through, and then I was like, I just got to push this one up to the top, and yeah, it was a blast.
I'm having a fun. It's on my end table. So whenever people come over, I actually spend in the garage because the tavern, because that's where we've been trying to record and get it. Todd Neese came by Friday. He was in town for Thanksgiving, visiting his in-laws and stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm in town. Do you want to come by? I'm like, yeah. So he came by. We're hanging out in the garage. Him and my buddy Tony are old Army buddies. So that, we're all three visiting. And he picked up the book and he goes, what's this? And I said, dude, you got to check this book out. This is great. James is a great guy. And I told him, I said, we've been trying to interview now for like 2 weeks. We just trying hard. And he goes, well, get me another copy. I said, I tell you what, when I'm done and my dad's done, I'll pass it on to you. But here's a website to go get it at on Amazon. And so, yeah, I think he texted Angela, his wife, and I think they're ordering a book right now.
Well, that's great. Well, one of the things I love, um, I I go to a lot of book shows and sell live. Of course, you can go to Amazon and buy it, but I sell live at a lot of shows, and it's the most satisfying thing in the world to meet people that have read the book and they go, "This thing was great. I couldn't put it down," and to have folks that come up and say, "I'm here to buy a copy for my friend." uh, that means a lot. They paid for it once, and they're paying for it again just to get it into the hands of their friends. That's pretty neat.
Well, and what the other thing too about the book of trying to get it out there is, one, it's a genuine book. It's not AI, and I've got the cover up right now on the screen, and I mean the artwork, the cover itself. I mean that jumps out at you. That's such an eye catcher. The way you work the yellows and the reds, but with people enjoying the novel and then wanting to share it. I mean, that's what we used to do during the 80s. I mean, you get a good book, you'd be telling your friends, "Oh man, this book was great," like a TV show. And nowadays, everything is being shared like on tablets and, people sharing games. This is just, totally, I don't know, books are great. And we've gotten away from that. But the other cool thing, like you mentioned earlier, that you penned all these, this is your artwork. There is no AI in the book. There is no AI anywhere at all. And I interviewed Betsy, and unfortunately, because like you put a thing for your books not to be used by AI.
Yeah,
She did not. So like a couple of her books got taken by AI to be, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to fight that right now." And I was like, so if you're an author out there, guys, make sure you put that in your books. And I'll let you explain about the AI system.
Yeah, well, AI is so new and I'm so old school. I had to be brought up to date on it. And some of the other creators that I know were saying, you've got to be sure that you put in your copyright page that you add a stipulation that none of your work can be used uh, to teach AI, because it can be taken and fed to AI, and then your ideas can be used to enhance AI. um, so I definitely have added that in. Um, I don't know where this whole AI thing is going, uh, but there's something special to me about knowing that this, and I know people that say, "Well, I use AI, but I only use it for prompts. I don't use it to write the whole thing. I only use it for prompts." Well, um, I can't speak to what they're doing or what they want to do. They can do whatever they want. But for myself, when I have somebody leave a review, or I have somebody that comes and meets me at the table and they say, "I couldn't put this thing down," and somebody, even the best compliment that I have had on Bigfoot is somebody bought the book and they came back to me and they said, "Hey, I thought it would be great, Bigfoot in the Old West, and it would just be a fun book." And he said, "By the time I got to the end, it was really profound." Now that's their words, not mine. And I'm like, wow, that's the biggest compliment anybody could give me. And to know that that all came from in here, the effect that it had on them in their emotions, and people tell me, "Oh, I go through one chapter, I've just got to go on to the other." That was something that I created. That came from my imagination, and it was transferred to somebody else. Um, I just have no interest in um, breaking that connection with the audience. That is something organic that starts with me and then it goes to somebody else.
And I love that. And I think that, for a lot of people who get into, my oldest daughter, she's got 2 published books on poetry, and super talented. And she wrote it just to write it and the hope to maybe inspire somebody else, you know? And so I love authors because of that reason right there. I haven't met one author yet who goes, "Well, I got into this because I want to make a ton of money and I want to be number one," like Stephen King or Dean Koontz or, anybody like that. There's a story that people have inside of them, and authors, you guys are so talented to be able to get that story out and put it out there. And not only that, it's entertaining, it's inspiring, and in some ways it can move people. So I mean, I'm all about it. So whenever I have an author, message me or email us and go, "Hey, I'd like to come on the show," I'm like, "Bring them on." I want to talk to authors. I want to know, what was your inspiration behind this? What was the trigger that made you want to write that? I can't write at all. I would love to. I have book ideas, but there's no way I can sit down and go, okay. And the door slowly opened, because my ADHD would go, "Oh, look, there's a squirrel." You know what I mean? Or what am I going to do today? So I have a hard time, that internal self-discipline to do that. So, I mean, kudos to you guys for that. That's awesome.
It does take some discipline, but at the same time, there's a well-known author, and I can't think of their name right now. I saw somebody did an interview with, and they said, "Why do you write?" And this author said, "Because I can't not write. I can't not do it. It's just in me." And I think that's how I feel. Like I said, ever since I was a kid, I have ideas. I just want to get them down. Uh, uh, Make them real in some way, a permanence. And certainly it's never been an issue of making money. I put money on the table by working in the fire service. But I, I just, it comes out of who I am. In some way, it's my identity of wanting to create. Uh, and a lot of people don't realize, if you go to a Barnes and Noble, you walk into a bookstore or a library, most of the authors that you see there, it's not their full-time gig. You don't make a living off of it. Now, someone like Stephen King, or the gal that wrote the Harry Potter series, right? She's got more money than the whole world. But most writers, uh, it's a side thing, and I do think it's a passion, because it's true when you hear writers say it's a lonely profession, just like boxing. They say boxing is the loneliest sport, because when you step into that ring, it is you
Yep.
against another person, just them. With writing, I know some people that there are writing teams. I know some folks like that. I don't know how they do it. Um, they collaborate, but for the most part, writing is an internal. You're sitting in a room, and it's just here trying to get it down here. But you love it.
So a lot of that too, similar with the podcast show, I mean, yeah, I'm not making any money on doing this stuff. This is, I mean, it's like writing a book. This is a passion of mine that I've had my whole life, especially when it comes to cryptids and paranormal. I lived in haunted houses. I've had my own cryptid encounters. I've had just that want to go out and find out what it really is. And some of the best ways of getting that is to get other people's stories, other people's encounters. I want to hear, when I was a kid in 1999, we was out in the woods and we saw something, and this is what happened, or I lived in a haunted house. Because the way I like it, the only way we're going to get to the bottom of some of these cryptid and paranormal stuff is to share the stories. We got to revert back to what we did before. Podcasting nowadays is kind of taking over TV. People are, taking over radio. It's almost old school radio, when people would back in the, everybody knows, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, what took place with that. But that's what it is coming back to. Come on, we'll hear the story, we'll hear the encounters and go, ooh, but for you as well, I want to be able to, create an environment for somebody who's had an encounter, come on the show and feel safe enough to share it. I've got some people who want to do audio only. I have some people who don't mind being on video, and because they don't want to be seen, because they've had that, and for some folks, it's kind of traumatic. And of course, in the same token too, though, for some reason, whenever people do see something, a lot of people don't believe them, because it's just how it is. But now you had a funny story about your kids.
Yeah, it's now it is embarrassing, because I was such a lunkhead when it came to this. So when folks say, have you ever had contact with Bigfoot? And I have to say no, but I wish I had. And I would say, I guess I came kind of close, because as a child, Growing up here in rural Ohio, I'm an hour outside of Columbus, and it's a small town farm community. And growing up here in 1980, so I was 10 years old, and I was, even at that time, I was reading books about Bigfoot, and I was watching the old anything that came on TV about Bigfoot, whether it was $6 Million Man and he's the bionic Bigfoot from outer space, or whether it's In Search Of, if you remember the old show with Leonard Nimoy. I was already into Bigfoot. And in 1980, in Logan County, we had a sudden rash of Bigfoot sightings. And it was in the newspaper, seemed like every day or every week. Bigfoot was ransacking barns, and he was tearing up the chickens or tearing into the feed and leaving prints. And I'd go to school and everybody's talking about it. And you drive down Main Street and the restaurants out front would have signs saying, Bigfoot, stop and eat here. And uh, I remember thinking, every day I couldn't wait to see if there was a new story in the paper. Uh, I remember standing at my window in my bedroom and looking out and thinking, oh, please, Bigfoot, pass by here. Now he never did, but I was that close. He was in the county, and I moved away after I graduated high school. I moved away. I lived in Chicago for about a dozen years, and then moved back with my family. Moved back here, and when we moved back, I went to the county museum. And in the Logan County Museum, they have a corner. I'm standing there with my wife and I'm going, holy cow, they've got a corner dedicated to the Bigfoot sightings from 1980. They had the plaster casts of the feet and the newspaper clippings and all the things. It was so neat to see that. It made it a little more real and tangible, because I had talked to my kids and my wife about it, and they're like, this really happened. Uh, that is the happy uh, memories of my close encounters with Bigfoot. Now, the one that's embarrassing that you're referring to is after we had moved back here, my family and we lived far out in the country, and we were actually caretakers at a trout club, and we managed the property out there. And there was a series of trout ponds. They had been dug out years before by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it was the people that owned the place. They would fully stock it with they'd bring in trucks and they'd stock it with rainbow trout, and they had a big beautiful old-fashioned lodge out there that people that are members, they could sign it out and they could stay there for a weekend, and they could do all the trout fishing that they wanted. And we lived in a little house up front, and we took care of the property. So uh, I was still working. I was working as a firefighter, and my kids were always out when they were probably 7, maybe 8 years old. My son and my daughter, and they grew up exploring and running around in the woods out there and through the streams and all this. And I came home from work after a shift one day, and I'm going to make an excuse for myself. I'm going to say I was up all night fighting fires and I was exhausted. But they said, Dad, you got to come out to the stream. You got to come out to the stream because we saw Bigfoot. Going, what? You saw Bigfoot? And they said, yes, we were out throwing rocks in the stream. And they said, on the other side of the stream, we heard noises in the brush, and we looked up and saw a big hairy feller that was covered with reddish hair, and we couldn't see him clearly because he was kind of obscured behind the brush, but he was looking at us, and he was standing up on two legs, and he looked at us and then took off, disappeared. And I said, well, was it a deer? Like, no, 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 it wasn't a deer. And there's, every kind of wildlife would be out there. We were way out there. And it was like, well, could it have been this? Could it have been that? No, 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 no. It was Bigfoot. It was bigger than a man, standing up on two legs, looking at us from behind the trees. And it had reddish fur. And then they said, and okay, this is where it gets embarrassing. I was like, nah, you kids are trying to scam me. You're trying to, I want to believe in this. I want to have a sighting, and you're just scamming me. Uh, I should have believed them. Uh, and they said, no, 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 Dad. We've got proof. There's there's a footprint in the mud next to the stream. Okay, take me to it. And this hurts. This hurts to say. There was a footprint in by the side of the stream. And I had come out there. They took me out to the stream, and I had put on my old firefighter boots. So we get to the footprint, and they said, "Dad, this is real." And my daughter said, "Put your foot in it." And I put my foot in the big firefighter boots, and it was like, a toddler's shoe in a footprint for an adult. And see, it's Bigfoot. And like I said, it hurts. I said, "Oh, are you kids scamming me?" I guess it was it's too good to be true sort of a thing. I thought, oh, they're waiting for Dad to get home. I've been gone for a day, and they carved out this footprint. And
No, I think
I thought they scammed me. So um, I'll leave it at that. And when I wrote the Bigfoot book, now my kids are adults now. They're 25, 27 years old. And when I wrote the Bigfoot book, and when I got done with it and I showed it to them, and they were like, "Dad, this is great." And they looked at me and they said, "Why didn't you ever believe us?"
oh, that had to hurt.
And they will tell you it was real. That was a real experience. And now I believe them now. So, we grow, we learn. I don't know why. I'm going to say, I was up all night fighting fires, saving lives. And I was just out of my mind with exhaustion.
Well, and I'll defend you on that one. And I think anybody out there, because one, I've never been a fireman, or I've never been law enforcement. I mean, I was military. So I tip my hat always to, the civilian, first responders out there. You guys are great. I appreciate, and the world should appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for doing all that. But when you have been up all night and you have been working and you get home and the kids they're excited to see you, you're excited to see them. Then there's a Bigfoot thing and you're just like, look, I don't have time for this. And I know you guys are having fun. You guys are being silly and goofy and you want to play with Dad. So I'm with you. So I know where your train of thought would have been at. And then looking back going, man, I screwed up, and on that token, I'll share a little story with you. When I was at Fort Hood, my, two of my oldest daughters, when I was with their mom, I came home. My buddy Rick was in transit from he just arrived in from Korea, and he was trying to get everything set to bring his family, so he's staying with us. So until he could get in process and get a house and all the fun stuff for his family to come up. And there was a playhouse we had in the backyard, and my daughter, my youngest one, was actually up on the roof of it. And she was little. We're talking like 5 years old. And I was like, I throw up in the sliding glass door and I'm yelling, get off the roof. What are you doing? I'm yelling at the older one, get in here. I told you guys not to do that stuff. And so my daughter, the one who wrote the book on poetry. So she comes in and she's, looking downtrodden. And I'm like, I told you not to do it. And she goes, I didn't do it. My friend did it. I'm like, what friend? You know what I mean? What are you talking about? My friend, and I can't remember the name of it, but some little boy. And she said this little boy put my daughter Stacy up on this playhouse roof. And I was just like, what? So I'm about to get upset. I'm in dad mode like you were, obviously. You gotta pull my leg, come on. And my buddy goes, hold on. Tell me about the little boy. So I shut up and, she said, yeah, this is little boy. And, we play with him. And I'm like, there's no way. And then, so Rick goes, oh, where's the little boy at? And she goes, well, he's on the roof. And he goes, of the playhouse? And she goes, no, of the big house. And Rick goes, well, why is he on the roof of the big house? And she goes, looked right down in the eye, and she goes, because he's afraid of Daddy. And I was like, exactly. So that's when I knew we had a haunted house. But only because of my buddy Rick stopped me. If not, I would have never gone through with it. So again, I understand completely. Crazy how kids are.
Yeah, it's crazy. You look back, and once you got enough years behind you, you've got a list of regrets. That's one of mine.
Well, I wouldn't use it for a regret. In all honesty, the encounter had already happened. So the best thing you could have done was take a picture of it, unless you have plaster laying around, Because most people, Like I have plaster in the tavern in boxes that we take when we go on our, investigations. But if I'm going taking the kids to the woods, I'm not packing around plaster in my backpack. That's kind of heavy. I'm already disabled enough as it is. I don't need any more weight, and I got to carry their stuff. You know, so if we come across a track, all I'm going to be able to do is go, oh, here's pictures. We can't cast it. So a lot of people, yeah, nobody's really. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should carry some of the Jeep. That way, there's a box of it just in case we can run to the Jeep and grab it. But that would be one of those looking back and regret things.
Yeah, that's hindsight is 2020. When I think about it, I'd be like, hey, if I could go back and do it again, I'd be like, kids, jump in the truck. We're going to go to the store. We're going to buy some plaster, and we're going to make this thing permanent. But I was probably too much. My bed was looking too attractive that morning.
And again, understandable. I mean, for what you're doing, not only is it a physical job, it's a mental job, and it's an emotional job. Excuse me. When you get all three that drain you, I mean, all you're thinking of is, I want food in a hot shower, wash the day away, and then I want to hit the bed. That's all I want to do. So I'm with you. So I understand completely. I would not beat myself up over it too much if I was you. But it's still kind of cool, though. The kids now, so they saw it. I mean, they had a chance to share in the magic.
Yeah.
And so when we were talking about, in 1980, the big wave that was coming through and how badly you're wanting it, a lot of us kids, me, I was, in the library reading books on Bigfoot, reading books on the Loch Ness Monster, reading books on ghosts, paranormal, everything I could get my hands on. Because there's something magical about that. It seems like we live in a world where the only magic we have anymore is these things right here, and, with nature and with the paranormal and the cryptid side, that's evidence right there that we still have magic in the world that's referenced in the Bible and everything. And it seems like we've gotten so far away from that. And I think that's why it's coming back in a popularity thing. And people are being, watching more shows about it, trying to do more research on it, doing it because the magic of the real world is how I like to put it, minus the black screen world, that's where it's at. And it's going to be honest with you, it's books like yours. It's going to help, reignite that imagination of people. It's going to make you feel like, our generation is going to make you feel like you're a kid again.
Yeah, well, that's right. And now in my story, now there are many different people have had different encounters, and there's different theories regarding Bigfoot, and some of them are more supernatural or paranormal. I know that there's a line of thinking out there of that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being, or that maybe he's a UFO or a spiritual being or sort of a thing. Now, that's never been my mindset with Bigfoot. When I think of Bigfoot, back to the 1980s, I never thought, well, he came from another dimension, or he's somehow a part of a UFO, or my everything that I read and that I've been influenced by is that he is part of our true natural world. He's organic. He's part of nature himself. And that's how I envision him in this story. So the Bigfoot in this story he's grounded he's part of the earth and nature. Now, and my Bigfoot in this story, he's not in any way malevolent. He's not a malevolent. He works in accord with nature. Now, that doesn't mean that he's a pushover. And this Bigfoot is certainly not a cream puff. This is a gunfighting story, right? Now, once he learns how to handle that 6-gun, he's putting the hurt on on these bad guys. So this is Bigfoot. He brings it to them hard, but he's doing it to defend his family, to defend his home and nature. And one thing I'll say about my stories is all of my stories have an element of humor in it. Even the names of some of the characters. So the Raspberry Kid is the gunfighter with a heart of gold. The Raspberry Kid. There's a sense of humor in all of this, but that is not to say that isn't a weight or a depth to this story, that it's grounded in some meaning. And throughout this story, intentionally, I put in the themes of family and belonging and togetherness. Bigfoot is looked at by society as an outsider. He's not accepted because he doesn't fit into what civilization is considered at the time. The Raspberry Kid is an outsider to society, but he really doesn't want to be that way. The Raspberry Kid realizes, as long as I'm a gunfighter, I'm an outcast from society, and I'd really like to be part of society. And even his horse, Old Bumpy, he's a three-legged horse. He's only got three legs, and he's got a peg leg for a hind leg, and he can't gallop. He can only totter along. He's a horse that everybody makes fun of the Raspberry Kid's horse. And that's the one thing the kid will fight about. He's willing to back down. But if you make fun of Bumpy, you're going to have a problem on your hands, and you're probably going to be trading lead because Bumpy isn't accepted. A three-legged horse, now there's humor in that. But there's also this theme. So as I'm explaining the story here, the kid falls in love with Snowy Winters. Now she's the beautiful school teacher in town, and she's adamantly opposed to gunfighting. She wants to see people educated. She wants there to be peace in Eagle Tooth. She and the kid fall in love, but there's a problem there because the kid's a gunfighter, and she's opposed to this, and yet they love each other. Her parents are outsiders because they're trying to be avocado farmers. And the kid he's never even run across what's an avocado. It's a green thing you mash up and eat. They're not accepted. The gang of outlaws are being led into the wilderness by Moondance, who's a Native American, and they need a scout to take these gunfighters into Bigfoot's territory. The gunfighters don't accept Moondance because he's a Native American. He ends up in this kind of cobbled together family of outsiders that include the kid and Snowy Winters and her avocado growing family. And also Feng Wang is a Chineseman who was working on building, laying track. And that's part of the history of the West. The Chinese immigrants came, and that was virtually the only jobs that they could get. So they did the hard work there. In the story, Feng Wang actually was one of the construction workers who made contact with Bigfoot. So they take him along so they can try and reach Bigfoot. He's not accepted either. So there's a family of outsiders, and they create a relationship with Bigfoot, even a larger family of outsiders. And I think every good story, no matter how much humor, whether it's just an action-packed adventure or humor story, every really good story, there has to be a base there's some kind of a weight, some kind of a value, something that has some depth to it. And like I said, I had one reader came back to me and said, wow, by the time I got to the end of this story, it was profound. Again, that's his words, not mine. And I'm like, good. That makes a compelling story.
And I can see where he was coming from, saying, it was profound. And if I keep looking out this way, it's because I'm waiting for the snow to start, and I got like a little drizzle of frozen rain dropping down right now. So that's the only reason why I'm doing that. So I'm paying attention. Trust me. We don't get winter weather in Arkansas often. So when we do, it's like big news. So love that you did that. I do want to talk here in a second about your first book, but okay. So never had a cryptid encounter, always fascinated with, cryptids. What about paranormal?
Paranormal, somebody asked me the other day, yes. So I have wondered if I grew up in a haunted house.
Okay.
My mom talks about when we moved into the house here in Ohio, when me and my sister were younger, that there was 2 times that I think the lady that owned the house before us, my understanding was that she had possibly died in the house. I'm not sure if that's right. But my mom said that when we were kids, she heard music and voices coming from the basement in the middle of the night. We were all asleep, and she kind of freaked her out, of course. And then as she listened, she said it was the most beautiful, unearthly music she'd ever heard. And she said it was so peaceful. She thought it must be angels, must be heavenly music. And she went back to sleep.
Wow.
Now she said, and I believe this was a separate time. Maybe it was the same time. She heard voices, and she opened her eyes, and she saw light glowing from inside the closet, like coming out the cracks of the door.
Mm.
And then she heard voices um, that said something like, "She's waking up, she's waking up." And then the light inside the closet went out. And she said, the voices were so reassuring and warm and calming that she thought these are angels watching over us. And she went back to bed. She just went back to sleep. So now that wasn't my experience, right? I'm relating my mom's experience. But the one experience that I have had, I have not had contact with Bigfoot. I haven't, I don't have any of that. The one that I would say that I personally have experienced was in the mid 80s. I was in high school, and it was a troubling time for me. I was a troubled teen, and I had started reading the Bible. I'd started reading the Bible as maybe there's some answers to life in the world here, and I was looking into it. Now I have been a believer. I've been a Christian since the mid '80s, and I believe that I believe the story of the Bible. I believe that we're separated from God by our own sins. We've walked away from Him. I believe that any punishment that we're due from God is because of our own wrongdoing, and yet God, in His kindness, the old gospel story. He came to earth as Jesus took the punishment that we deserve so that we can be adopted into His family and be born again into His family. Now, I believe that story to this day. And I was getting into that, starting to read the Bible. Didn't make any sense to me. I just picked it up. I was like, oh, I guess the Bible is supposed to have the answers to the world. And it was like reading another language. I didn't, what is this? I don't know. But I was moving that direction. Now, if someone does believe the Bible says that we have an enemy, and that enemy is in a spiritual realm. Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, whatever you want to say. There's a spiritual enemy that is trying to confuse us and separate us and deceive us and keep us from returning to God. And I'll say at the outset, I think I do believe this is what was happening in the story that I'm about to relate. So I was troubled. I had started reading my Bible, and I can't remember the exact year. I think it was 85. I don't know who was playing in the World Series that year, but I had been watching the World Series that night, went to bed, and I'm laying in bed, and I will say, I know this wasn't a dream. If somebody was skeptical, right, they would go, "Oh, hey, Smith, uh, you dreamed this." I'll back up for a second. I say Smith because my real name is James Smith, and they call me Smith at work, Smitty. Um, my my pen name, my author name is James A. Fyerman because I'm James and I'm a fireman.
Love
but
that. I do love that.
So I know a skeptic would say the story that I'm about to relate. They go, maybe you were dreaming, maybe you were whatever. Um, I was. I'm convinced this was real. I was laying on my back in bed, flat on my back. My eyes were closed, and it wasn't a dream. My field of vision, it was all black. It was all black. And out of that blackness came the silhouette of a man. I could see the shape of a man, head, shoulders, arms, legs. Now, it was pure blackness. So if I say there was a silhouette coming towards me out of the blackness, it would imply that there was some kind of light around the silhouette, right? But there wasn't. I can't explain that otherwise. It was pure black, but I could see the black form coming towards me. And
Right.
it was malevolent. I knew this. And yet I was unable to move. Flat on my back, arms at my side, in bed, and I was paralyzed. I could not move. And I wasn't dreaming it. I was seeing it in whatever realm this was. I was seeing this thing. And as he's coming towards me, this was frightening. I knew this is not good. And he had one arm was behind his back. And as he was coming closer, he reached out from behind him and he was holding a long blade, a knife. It was the only thing that had any light or color to it. You couldn't see the hilt. You couldn't see the handle. You couldn't see anything except this blade. It was a silvery blade, non-serrated. It had a bit of a curve to it, and it was long. And I will tell you, I can still remember just looking at it hurt. It was so sharp. The sharpness of it hurt to look at it. And as he's moving towards me, he's not saying anything. He has no face, no eyes. It's a silhouette. Everything is black. Field of vision is black. Just this blade that is gleaming. It's silverish. As he's coming towards me, I believe. Now I say I knew all this other. I know this was real. It wasn't a dream. My strong belief, and it still is, that if as he came towards me, he was coming with the knife up and he was going to plunge it into me. And I fully believe if he did that, that I would have died that night in the bed. Now, I don't think, I say I believe it because it didn't happen. I can't say, this happened. He didn't do it. But if he did, I don't think it would have been like Freddy, right? Like I would have woken up, they would have found my body all covered in blood and sliced up. I think I would have just been laying there dead, and they'd say, oh, the kid had popped a vein in his head or something. But I fully believe that. And as he's coming closer, I knew I'm going to die. If he puts this in me, I'm going to die. And at the last second, I'm paralyzed. At the last moment, I shouted with all my might, Jesus! And I don't know if I did it audibly or if it was just, in my head. But as soon as I did, gone. I came up out of, I was not paralyzed anymore. I was able to move. I will tell you, although a skeptic could say, write it off to something else. I know it was real. And I believe if I hadn't cried out in the name of the Savior, I believe I would have died that night. And my working theory is that God was bringing me back to him, and that we have an enemy, and that enemy, if possible, what the Bible says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I think if it were possible, our spiritual enemy would have killed me before I could have returned to God. And so I was scared to death. I got up. Everybody else was asleep. I'm not going to go wake anybody up and tell them this weird thing. I went and turned on the TV and I finished watching that World Series game.
I would have been scared too, to be honest with you. That would have been horrifying to see. I've seen some shadow people, but nothing at all like that. And, everybody wants to consider themselves brave until something like that happens. And then, I mean, that's scary. And I believe you're right. I believe that if it would have you not had, the strength to call out for the Savior to come and help, yeah, it wouldn't have been like, Nightmare on Elm Street thing at all. It would have been like, he did, pop, vessel in the brain or, heart attack at a young age or something like that, but wow. And is that the only time this ever happened?
That's the only time it ever happened. And it was later that year that I had what I believe was that I had a conversion moment where I truly understood the gospel story, gospel meaning the good news, that I don't have to be separated from God. I don't have to be punished for my sins because God himself came as a savior. And that's when I put my trust in God. And I can't explain it other than I say it makes sense to me that my life was about to change in a good way back there in the mid 80s, and that there's an enemy in this world that's against us. And my evidence for that is anybody, look at your phone, open a newspaper, watch TV. The world it's a disaster all around us.
Well,
It's not the way it's supposed to be.
Well, and on that note too, though, the way, when I try and tell people at the same time, like, look, yeah, because that's what they want us to see. They want to put this with the world is horrible. But also, if you look out the window, you'll see the sun shining. You'll see the sunset. You'll see a sunrise. You hear the birds singing. You'll see, nature. If you go outside and look, you'll see people helping each other, and there's, depressing, prime example. I mean, horror movies, and I love horror movies. Horror movies do great in movie sales and everything. You put a happy, positive movie out there, it doesn't, because people don't want to see that. They want to see that horror and that gore and everything, and they turn on the news so they can go, what's wrong with the world today? And then we can blame it on that, and we can blame it on this, and not looking internally and going, yeah, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the asshole here. Get out and meet your neighbor. And so I try and tell everybody. And also with today's technology, we can find out real quick how horrible what's going on over, in a third world country and what they're doing to each other. And we can look and go, man, what do we do? The world's going, it's bad. That's been happening for hundreds of years. We're just now getting able to read about it immediately. So that's just my theory. I'm like, hey, so I don't turn on the news. I don't watch it. I'll get I get information over here and there, but I try not to. I don't care about the politics. I don't care about any of that stuff. As long as I'm taking care of me and mine, and I'm taking care of my neighbors, I think that's what God wants us to do, and, and you're right. There is an enemy out there, and he is waging war on us, and he has been for eons, and he'll continue to do such until, we go into the Revelation stage, the Bible. But that was scary. So was this the same house though that your mom was having the encounters?
Yes. Yeah. Same house.
Weird as that. Because what got me on that with your mom was, the light being on and them talking, saying, she's awake. She's awake. So wondering, for yours, if and with you coming in, coming to your realization later on that year, if they knew that was happening and they were coming to try and stop it beforehand. So I don't know, kind of a theory. Scary though, man, James, that's scary. Scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's strange, but like you said, I fully believe. Yeah. Yeah. The world, there's darkness in the world, but like you said, there is light in the world. There is good news in the world, and it's because God is good and he's in the world. And if anybody's familiar with C.S. Lewis, if you've heard of C.S. Lewis, a great author, and he was a professor. I believe he taught at Cambridge in England. He spent most of his life as an atheist, and then he became a Christian, and he wrote some great works on faith. But he also was a great fiction writer. He has his space trilogy, which is a wonderful set of books, and he wrote the Narnia series for kids, that fantasy series, and it reflects a lot of his faith. But he describes, even in the Narnia series, how the Narnia series, when evil took over that land and it became frosted over and frozen, and it was just a cold, desolate place. But then Aslan the lion, who in that story, he kind of represents God coming in and rescuing the children and setting the land free. Then the ice starts to melt, and you start to see the rays of sun coming in, like springtime is coming in. That's where we're at in the world right now. The ice is starting to melt because the true light really is in the world. So yeah, like you said, ultimately, light wins. Goodness wins.
Yeah, we already know the outcome of it. So that's where my faith lies in that. My faith lies in the God and knowing that the outcome is there. And I put my trust into God, into everything that I do, good or bad. I mean, it happens for a reason. And I have to put my, faith in. I'm not going to, I'm not, one of my favorite analogies is, the guy swims out in the ocean, he goes swimming, he starts to drown, starts praying out, God, 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 help me, help me, help me. Lifeguard jumps in the water, runs out there, and the guy says, no, God's going to save me. Boat shows up. No, God's going to save me. Finally, a helicopter shows up. He's waving the helicopter away. No, God's going to save me. Well, the guy drowns. He gets up to heaven, and he's like, where were you? I was praying to you. You thought you were going to come and save me. And the guy goes, I sent you a lifeguard. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What more do you want? And I think a lot of times in life that we miss that. We missed a lifeguard. We missed a boat. We missed a helicopter because we're waiting for a hand to come out of the sky and pluck us. And that's not how it works. So with everything that takes place in my life, good or bad, first off, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a horrible thing that's happening to me right now. Okay, guys, so you have a plan for me. Okay, so I got to put trust in your plan, but I got to work the plan too. I just can't sit back and go, yeah, guys, let me win the lottery. Okay, did you buy a lottery ticket? Well, no, but he's going to let me win the lottery. You have to be proactive into work God's plan. So yeah, that's just how I work it. I mean,
yeah,
that's me. Yeah. I mean, so, but man,
well, I'm in agreement with that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, real quick, I want to get ready to bring it for a landing. I want to talk briefly though about your first book. Okay. So I want to pull that up again because I love the cover. So let's tell everybody. Let's see here. I think we're still on Bigfoot. Yeah. So let me move Bigfoot. I love that. I mean, I'm not going to lie. What a cool picture. I mean, you just look at that, see the intensity in the eyes. Great job with that, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Great job with that. Where'd it go? See, what great artwork. The original Breaker 4's Adventures in Space. Love it. So that is the cover, right?
Well, that's one of the covers. So I'm in, whenever this episode of us talking airs, it may or may not be the final cover. It may be inside the book. So I'm getting ready to do a second edition because Breaker 4 it's done very well for me, and I'm doing a second edition that is all new color illustrations inside, which you may have shown a few of these.
Yeah, we scanned through it. They got to tease the audience.
So if depending on when this airs, you might be able to still go to Amazon and buy the first edition, which has a different cover, and it does not have the illustrations in it. And that's going to be done away with. It will no longer be in print. So if you can still get it and you want it, a first edition, it will be a collector's item. So the second edition is you're showing one of the covers. At this point, I think it's going to be inside the book as sort of a cover within a cover, and there'll be a new cover, and there's full color illustrations throughout every chapter, and that's something I'm really looking forward to coming at the start of the new year, the second edition. But Breaker 4 has been it's been out for several years. Breaker 4 is of course the first story that I've published, and so it holds a dear place in my heart. And I was 7 years old when the first Star Wars came out in '77. and that kind of changed my life with the Han Solo and they're zooming around in the spaceships and all that. And Breaker Ford is kind of built on that. He's a space trucker, right? And
Love that. I'm not gonna. I love that space trucker concept.
this is full comedy, and it's all the things I love about outer space, or the old timey outer space. I'm a fan of most things that were before my time. I love the old black and white movies. I love the old pulp magazines that were even pre comic books. They only had pen and ink illustrations in there. I love the cheesy B movies from the 50s. If people remember Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, that's what this is. And it's satirical, and it knows that this is humorous. So Breaker Ford, he's trying to make his first hauling run across the galaxy. He's got his best friend. It's his cousin Wayne, who's a hillbilly space farmer. He's with him for the ride. And they run into Princess Babe, the beautiful space princess. She's being pursued by agents of Lord Preposterous from the planet Nebulous X. Now, Lord Preposterous, he is a congealed pile of space bacteria that became sentient. And he's so disgusting that none of the royal females on his planet will agree to marry him. They'd rather be banished to the nether regions of space. So he has to kidnap a princess. So he's trying to kidnap this princess that Breaker falls in love with. So Breaker, now not only is he trying to make his first successful hauling run across the galaxy, which it's not his first run. He's attempted it many times before. And as Wayne, the hillbilly space farmer, says, Breaker always runs his ship into the ditch. So he's trying to make his first successful run. Now he's trying to rescue the princess. And along the way, he gets scammed by J.J. Whammo, a used spaceship salesman. And he runs into Knothead Madhouse, who is a wild space barbarian. And he gets them on his side with his sob story of what's going on. And he cobbles together this group of space misfits to try and take on Lord Preposterous. And it's mad scientists and killer robots and crazy death traps and all the stuff that, if you're like me, that you love from outer space. And that's Breaker Ford.
I love that. And so there's a second edition coming out. Is it coming out in January or?
Right now, because it's tentative, if depending on how it goes with the printers, it may be out late January or mid-February.
Okay.
You never can tell with the printers. And like I say, the cover that you're looking at, or that I think you're showing, like I said, I designed, and when I say designed, again, it's old school. It's paint on canvas. And the printers add the printers add the titles, right? So I didn't do that, but I did several to see what I like better. Now, I don't think you have what I think is going to be the final cover. So the one that I think you're showing is going to be a second cover inside the book.
Yeah, but I got again. I mean, that is by looking at it. I mean, that just screams, nostalgia and retro. And again, the colors and everything they pop out. I mean, great uses of the colors. I mean, that's so awesome. And the play on, now in color. I mean, I love that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did a really great job there by doing that. And so, real quick, because I am going to bring it for landing, tell everybody where can they find your books on Amazon, right? Do you have a website or anything?
Yep. Go to Amazon.com and you can put in either of my titles, Bigfoot in the Saddle, Breaker Ford's Adventures in Space, or my name, James A. Fyerman. It's pronounced Fyerman. It's spelled Fyerman. Any of those will take you to my author page at Amazon. And then you can get either of the books any of the books there. And you can go to Facebook, James A. Fyerman on Facebook, and there's links there to the books, and you can follow me there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much. Of course, we're going to post everything in the show notes. So that way, in the show notes, everybody, go ahead and we're going to post links to the books on Amazon. So make sure you check out James. James, thank you for coming on the show. Our take 4 or 5 now. I can't remember which one it is, but I've enjoyed every conversation. And I wanted to get into, because we didn't talk originally about, the shadow person, that the entity that you had in your room on any of our previous conversations. So thank you though for sharing that with me. That's pretty scary. That's scary. But I mean, I'm glad you got out of it, and I'm glad that you were able to do it. And thank you for being a first responder, and being a fireman for as many years you've been doing it. That it's a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. And it's been my pleasure to be here talking with you. Yeah, we've tried to run through this a couple of times. It's always fun. And it's just a good time.
Well, I appreciate it so very much. And everybody else out there, thank you for liking and sharing the show. If you've had an encounter and you want to come on, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Make sure you're following all of our social media platforms. Like, share, comment. I appreciate everything you're doing. So until next time, man, here's a miss and a good beer.